now we come to the first of our panel discussions, which is on disaster prevention and relief, a very important and enormous topic. And for that discussion, I'm pleased to welcome Henk Ovink back again on screen. And then please join me in welcoming our panelists. We have Takako Izumi, Fumihiko Immura, and our moderator, Sawako Takeuchi. Please join me in welcoming them. Please, Sawako here? You're here? No, you're here.
No.
You're here?
Yeah,
you're here. Please.
Okay.
You're here? Yes, and you're here.
Thank you.
Because this way you can see everybody at once, including Henk. And there we are, there's Henk as well. So over to you.
Okay, let's get started on the panel on the disaster relief and prevention. After listening to very macro, the Earth level analysis and observation, and also discussion among the UN members about the approach, very comprehensive approaches to disasters. We will look at now and focus on the impact on the Earth and on our lives. Let me start with a very short statement about the disasters. Disasters now being increased now, and currently we are facing with in terms of the increasing size of impact and damages and the frequency. And we have to think about the timing of this discussion, why we have to look at the water matters issue right now. So we have to think about the contrast between the traditional and conservative ideas about infrastructure and also new risk analysis on our lives and also new approaches we're looking for. So let me start with treating these vast ideas. Let me start with very small questions. What kind of aspect do you really worry about on the disaster issues? And Professor Immura, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm the Fumihiko Immura, the professor of the tsunami engineering in Tohoku University. Now the director of the International Research Institute of Disaster Sciences, which has started just after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake tsunami. As you know, it caused huge damages. More than 20,000 people died in Japan and affected the area, including the Fukushima nuclear accident. So I'm the engineer, and to try to predict some hazard and disasters before it comes. So it is the warning, and by using the supercomputer and the AI, we try to provide good information for the people to let evacuate. But at the time, 2011, it failed. Earthquake was so large, and also tsunami is so complicated, so we have such disasters. So now we are expanding the issue, not only engineering and science, natural sciences, but to the human response and some society for resilience. So it is very interdisciplinary. So our institute, we have more than 60 faculty members from natural science to the human and social sciences and medical doctor to save our lives. So this is very important starting to solve in the future, I think.
Yes. I think after the conversation with you, the previous conversation, you mentioned you were trying to build up the kind of resilient community.
Yes, right.
And now you are thinking a little bit more speedy approaches to build up community help or relief on the community basis. Do you have any new approaches to community building?
Yeah, let me explain, try to explain. So in the past, before 2011, we have the importance of the self and the neutral and public health. It is one of very key of the resilience. But after the 2011, So we need help more from the private section to provide the good technology and also investment to save our community as well as the human loss just after the disasters. So this is a challenge, I think.
Okay, we will continue on this subject.
Thank you.
So, Professor Izumi, you worked very much in the developing countries for humanitarian works, and now you are working on also the disaster aspect and also relief from your experiences. So, do you have any specific ideas that you want to talk about among us?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi. My name is Takako Izumi. Good morning. I'm from also Tohoku University. And as you know, mostly 70% of natural hazards in the last 10 years are considered water-related hazards. And we also seeing it's happening everywhere, and the intensity and also the frequency is really increasing. So there are many innovations in science and technology for disaster risk reduction. But if we continue this kind of conventional disaster risk reduction, and the situation will not get better, it's still the same. So the question is how we can scale up the current disaster risk reduction measures and preparedness measures to tackle more complex disasters and threats in the future. So as I mentioned, there are so many roles to play by science and technology. It's very important. And we saw a lot of development like risk assessment tools and early warning systems. And there are many good examples. And one of them is SNS, the role and usage of SNS, that drastically increased the early warning system, and also that the sending the message of early warning, and also accepting the message from the affected areas, what is happening through SNS. So that kind of things did not happen in 10 years ago. So that's a lot of the development and progress. On the other hand, another question is how this science and technology can be reached to the ground level. There are many, as I mentioned, there are many innovations, but the question is, are they really effectively used at the ground level? So that's another question, and also we have to discuss, and especially on how we can scale up and the further progress in disaster risk reduction.
Okay, yes, further progress. And then now, Mr. Henk, and you want to really emphasize the risks and interdependence, and also the comprehensive approaches to see the future disaster risks. Could you really a little bit more explain about interdependence, what it means?
Yes, thanks so much for giving me the floor, and thanks so much also for joining in this distinguished panel. Working post-disaster around the world, too often we see band-aid approaches, an immediate response to a disaster that just happened. It means that the response is always looking backwards to what the disaster did to our economies, our environment and society, and focuses on repair. And then we hear this phrase of build back better, but it is only a little better. A disaster is like an X-ray. It shows us the interdependencies across everything in society: social, environmental, cultural, and economic interdependencies. It is the responsibility of all of us to use that disaster as a way, through this assessment, to look ahead and take a future perspective as where we have to go. And that means that you really have to look across sectors and silos in the interdependence. The second thing is that, and that's been said too, preparedness pays. If with every dollar, euro, or yen spent, we add value to the environment, to our communities and the economy, we prevent losses, and we reduce risks. And how to do this, which would be third, is really about the combination of being prepared. Secretary General Guterres said, I want a world within 5 years that every citizen around this world has the best available data to be better prepared. But second, to have the capacity to act upon it. So this is really about building capacity and enabling environment, institutionally and informal, as well as having access to data, instruments and investments to build projects, programs and pipelines that really come from that future. And that means that we have to go beyond silos, beyond a reactive approach to a very proactive, inclusive and comprehensive way. Okay. But it's challenging because post-disaster, we need to pick up the pieces. The humanitarian aspect is so large that it is really depends on leadership across all scales, that next to providing immediate aid and disaster relief, it is combining that effort also with future orientation. I worked for the Obama administration post-Hurricane Sandy on President Obama's Hurricane Sandy task force. And this is what we tried to match. And one of the outcomes was a challenge called Rebuild by Design, where, and now 10 years ago, Hurricane Sandy next weekend, also a reason why I'm in New York. With those innovative concepts, we really started to work on future-oriented, comprehensive, and radically inclusive approaches.
Okay, thank you very much. And I really, after listening to your comments, I want to focus three subjects first. And one is taking into consideration scarce public resources. We have to really focus on where we have to invest first, and then how. How means hardware or software, digital technology, or research. How to invest the valuable money and to dynamize the disaster preventive measures. And the second one, you mentioned the SNS and message, the emission, transmission of message, real-time emission of information, and how to really spread risk information to the local residents or local authorities. And so we have to really think about digital technology, how it can bring the positive impact on our lives and how to save the people. And also the third one is leadership issues, and we cannot rely on just the local leaders or everywhere. It's numerous leaders now on the earth. And then the UN, and there are international organizations as well, and national government. But I think in taking into consideration regarding the complex characters of disasters, we cannot rely on also orthodox and conservative national leaders, because there is a missing link between the national policies and local people. So we have to focus on the missing link, how to really find out the missing link in the macro, micro, or local authority and residents, and more focused and targeted information mission. So please follow that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me try maybe first and third.
One of three. You don't need to respond to three.
So just when we are thinking about some futures, so I think we need to go back in the histories. So for the assessment for the investment, we need some frequency or cycle of the natural disasters for the futures. So this is important. But when we look at the literature in the history, we have the limitation. So we are going to some geological aspect, some sediment caused by the tsunami or earthquake and volcano. So it should be combined. And when we are looking for the history, for example, at the Sendai, we found some kind of innovation by the samurai that 400 years ago as the leader.
It's too old.
Yeah, to reconstruct the affected area. So just 400 years ago, 1611, samurai that had similar damages caused by the earthquake tsunami, and he's thinking about the reconstruction. So people not allow the coastal area because it did affect the tsunami very much. And planting the green belt to protect the futures, and seawater come on the plain area. So he thinking about to utilize seawater by utilize the pine tree for the energy. So he promoted new innovation at the time.
Okay.
So we follow.
I think this episode is very beautiful, but to apply to the current today's society, I think we have to think about the different approaches. I have visited several times in developing countries and cities, and one of the experiences which reminds me and impressive was there in Vietnam. Seaside coast and small villages, which is called Hue, very touristic, very beautiful city. And then when I visited this village is very flat, and the seawater is coming all the time. And then the rice field is always wet because of the seawater and salty water. And then they tried to do that research and development to find out the new type of cultivation of rice, which is very resistant to the seawater. And they succeeded in bringing new type of rice cultivation. And also they created a local radio network and to escape quickly or evacuation quickly, and also to send messages to local residents according to the sea level rise, even at 5 millimeter or 1 centimeter. So I think I realized, and they have very good communication tools and very emergent, emergent message can be spread very quickly. Instead of national broadcasting or very scientific database information. I mean, how do you think about this? I ask you, Professor Izumi, you're working in many developing countries as well. So in SNS or digital technologies, or how to apply those things to community level works.
Okay, thank you, Professor Takeuchi. Yes, indeed, I believe there are so many innovative ways and disaster preparedness actions developed at the community level, as you also mentioned. And that's also very important. And we really need to support these community actions. Also, the local leaders and the local governments, they are the ones that knows what is the issues and what is the local resources. They are really the center of the disaster risk reduction prevention work. And at the same time, I also would like to mention about the role of scientific community and academia and universities. That's a big homework to us and university. And we, of course, really need to concentrate and focus on research and the writing papers and the book. However, at the same time, we can be the interface between the science and also the community. As I mentioned, this science and technology has to be used and has to be practical and has to be accessed by the communities as well. So that interface, who can do it? And I think us, the universities can be the ones who can help this interface and go to the communities and also try to assess what is the issues and how we can help. Then that kind of collaboration among the local universities and the local communities is also very, very important.
You are coming from Tohoku area, especially it's a damaged area from tsunami and earthquake. Do you have any particular message you want to send to the audience from Tohoku experiences or something very vital which we have to know now? if you have
Yeah, thank
anything
you.
very
Yeah.
strong messages
Yeah.
to after you, because you have very advantages
Thank you very much.
in terms of.
So 11 years ago, Tohoku area heavy damaged, and it is actually frequent in the history, but it is not usual in the past. So it is very, very sorry, but we know this is another chance to change our life and thinking for the futures, especially for
How?
how. How.
How to change?
Yeah. Firstly, yeah, the community introduced the new infrastructure. Yeah, not only the seawall, but also new type of the advanced technology
I see.
and communication. So, and we need the kind of new product to utilize natural, especially in the Tohoku, I think.
I see.
Thank you.
Any strong messages?
Yeah, thank you very much. And you also mentioned the importance of the leadership
Yes.
in a prior. Then I totally agree with that, and leadership is very, very important. But, and also at the same time, we also have to understand the level of the disaster risk reduction measures and the capacity, it's so different by country. So one solution cannot fit all countries and all levels. So we have to be very much tailor-made, and we also have to work together with this and the local, the people. This is, again, the repetition of my message. But we really have to understand the difference between the level of the disaster risk reduction. Otherwise, we really keep repeating the same ways. So we really need to identify what is the solutions and the problems right now. Thank you.
Dr. Henk, you can interrupt anytime you feel, if you have any comments on what on two professors.
I'd like to come in because it's always a little bit hard to be online, but thanks for asking me.
Yes, of
I
course.
think what's just been discussed is so right. Local capacities, as well as indigenous capacities, capacities that come from community that are part of the challenge, are of critical importance in building resiliency, disaster risk reduction, and post-disaster, and really looking to the future. The combined talent of these communities does have to be matched with talent of experts, of investors, of leadership from across the world. It is this mix of talent that can be individual, can be informal, but also has to be institutional. That is, I think that is one. There also is a lesson that comes from nature, nature-based solutions, the redundancy and resiliency in our natural systems really help us understand how to build back and how to really build in the context of disaster risk reduction.
Okay.
But there is a challenge that is political. The post-disaster where communities and people lost a lot, lives, friends, family, and assets. In current political context, often there is not a lot of trust. So next to this mix of talent and really focusing on local capacities and bringing in institutional capacities across layers, it is really about creating time and space to build trust to work together. Because at the core of this is how can you build a coalition across these silos and sectors that combines that talent, that really becomes provocative in the context of future challenges. And that is trust. And trust is tough in a political environment, and the world is not becoming more easy, you could say. In the Netherlands, there's a saying, trust comes by turtle and leaves by horse. So it comes very slowly, but before you know it, you lose it. And this is at the core of resiliency building post-disaster, is that you have to focus on building trust in an environment that is safe. So you build a safe space as a process where people can really come together, where science and data and assessments really matter, to be able to bring the different needs and opportunities together to look at that future. And that is tough work. It starts with consistency, commitment, but also a level of continuity. to ensure that trust building drives coalitions across those interests towards future-oriented approaches.
Thank you very much. I think that the keyword is very important, trust building. And I want to mention a little bit more concrete examples and in terms of involvement of commercial sector and private sector, and also consumers' consciousness about the damage in different sectors. For example, there was a kind of very good cooperation between the damaged farmers and also the consumers living in urban area. And then because the agriculture was very damaged by the wind, strong wind, and then all the fruits fall down and damaged. And then next day, there was the announcement that these fruits will be transported to the Tokyo, which is station, and immediately sold out. So consumer could help trans-regional way, not only the community base, but also if we use effectively that kind of the status or situation of local area and also products itself, if it is not damaged so much, we can sell immediately and create pipeline of these foods and agricultural product to go to the urban area and to serve the different cities, for example. Therefore, I think private sector involvement also very important. And lastly, also, I want to mention also that in terms of evacuation of people. And when I visit the Shizuoka area, it's also seaside. And there was not a tall building to go. It's small houses, people, residents, they cannot go far away from their houses. And then they created very tall houses near from there. And then, but tall building was not enough. So I think if they can create some kind of trust relationship between the resident living in the tall building and the resident living in the normal flat houses, I think if for emergency cases, if they can share the space or any space in the tall building, they can share their lives during 2 days or 3 days. For example, I think we need to look for very untraditional approaches to help each other for the recovery processes, and also to spread understanding about industrial damages or agricultural damages, or there are so many kind of damages according to the size and dimension. I think we can help, we can create kind of using new technologies or this kind of things, more concrete approaches. I think we have only 1 minute remain, and if you really want to say something.
So just I would like to say we never have again such damages as the 2011. So we want to share with you, especially not experiencing but lesson. So please visit Tohoku and talk.
Please.
to talk with us to never happen again.
Thank you very much, Professor Immura and Izumi-san and Dr. Henk. Thank you very much for audience to share the time with us to start up of our discussion on the disaster and the relief. And we hope you will enjoy this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.